Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker is said to be the final installment of the sequel trilogy that's going to answer a lot of the burning questions based within The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi by J.J. Abrams. This is Mike Zero. If you guys are new to the channel, do make sure to subscribe to see future Star Wars content. Now, what's really great about Episode 9 is that we do know that this movie is, yes, going to be a film that answers all of those burning questions that we had in The Force Awakens, as well as some of the newer ones that we actually had questions for in The Last Jedi, and even extending many of the different sequences based within Episode 8 that will be visually shown in Episode 9. Now, these past couple of weeks or so, we've been learning a whole lot more about this film, and when it all comes down to one of the concept art descriptions, this is where things begin to get very intriguing. Now, specifically, a description of the Force ghost of Luke Skywalker giving a lesson and story to Rey about his past, where Luke is explaining on a deeper explanation of what happened to his Jedi Temple and how he feels about what he did to his own nephew. It's described that Luke Skywalker admits that after he almost killed his own nephew, it has haunted him for years, and that not one day goes by that he doesn't think about it, and that he never had the bravery to tell his own sister Leia about what happened in the hut and the temple destruction. It's described that as Luke Skywalker delivers this to Rey, he goes on to confess that he feels he could have prevented all of this from happening if it weren't for him jumping to any conclusions. The next describes that as Luke is delivering this story, an extended sequence of Luke Skywalker's temple destruction is revealed, where Ben Solo is seen climbing out of the collapsed hut debris, leaving his uncle buried under the wreckage, where around a dozen Jedi are all grouped together, confused. It's said that Ben Solo ignites his blue lightsaber with an angry face, similar to Anakin's mannerisms before he killed the younglings in Revenge of the Sith, where Luke's Jedi all ignite their lightsabers, trying to defend themselves, where it's said to be a sequence that concludes the temple destruction story during Luke's story showing Kylo going full Anakin style from Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith, slaughtering them one by one by use of the dark side of the Force, and leaving with 6 Jedi that he spared. So, I want to go over a couple of parts about this because we do know that Episode 9 is going to answer some of the questions from The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, right? Now, to this day, the biggest question of all was this, right? We do know that in The Last Jedi, Luke Skywalker said that Kylo, vanished with a handful of his students and slaughtered the rest. And it left a lot of fans wondering, alright? The students that Kylo Ren took away from the Jedi Temple and spared their lives, are they indeed the Knights of Ren, hence why they are called the Knights per se? That could very well be a little play on words of the Jedi Knights. So, what's really intriguing to me about all of this is that, yes, that's still not confirmed to this day on whether or not the Knights of Ren are Luke Skywalker's new generation of Jedi, the ones that lived, that were turned to the dark side. But the other thing is this that really does intrigue me, is that the beginning of the whole entire sequence involved in the Force ghost of Luke Skywalker revealing to Rey that he never had the bravery to tell his own sister, Leia, of what he did to Ben Solo, attempting to kill him because of what he saw was going on between himself and Supreme Leader Snoke, and how Snoke had already turned his heart. So, this whole entire sequence tells us that Luke Skywalker has a lot of remorse about what he attempted to do to his own nephew. Now, mind you, in The Last Jedi, we saw different versions of the story through Kylo's mind, and of course, through Luke Skywalker's lie, and then eventually Luke Skywalker's truth, right, to Rey, where Luke Skywalker was about to kill his nephew, but then he ultimately just stopped, and that whole entire sequence changed everything for Luke Skywalker's life. So, this is a moment in which Luke Skywalker is basically pouring, out his true feelings to Rey about how he feels, what he did to his own nephew, Ben Solo, well after the events of the sequel trilogy, or well after the events of, I guess you could say, what happened before the sequels. And this is where things begin to pick up and get very intriguing, is where, as he's discussing this, visually speaking, we do get an expanded version of the flashback sequence where Ben Solo is described to be climbing out of the wreckage of the hut, that he actually used the Force to collapse, the rubble onto his own Uncle Luke and himself. He climbs out of that only to be faced by around a dozen Jedi or more, where they all eventually ignite their lightsabers because they see the aggression with Kylo Ren, where he eventually slaughters them one by one, full-on Anakin Skywalker style, from Revenge of the Sith of what he did to the Separatists. So you could see that J.J. Abrams is once again delivering a parallel, right? Big parallel to Episode 3, where you have Anakin Skywalker, you know, facing the younglings and slaughtering the Separatists on film, where in this particular sequence we're getting the same exact thing, where Kylo Ren is literally going through exactly what his grandfather went through and slaughtering the Jedi one by one. That's going to be shown to the audience on the big screen, where he eventually spares the lives of 6 Jedi that he takes with him, that may or may not be the Knights of Ren for all we know. Anyways, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.